This is the story of how three enthusiasts put together three Fender Princeton Reverb clones from Mojo kits under the tutelage of John Dickinson of Dickinson Amplification. The course was organised by Andy Gaze of All Parts UK, who is the UK importer for Mojo, and it took place at John Dickinson's workshops at the Antenna Studios in Crystal Palace. John is an experienced builder and repairer of amps, and you can see here a very tasty example of one of his designs. To try and keep the course to 2 days length, Andy had originally wanted us all to make either a Champ or a Deluxe, but three of us, including Andy himself, wanted to make a Princeton Reverb clone, so that's what we ended up doing. I'm very fortunate to own three original Princeton Reverbs, and here's one of them which we used to give us some guidance during the course. I love the sound of my Princeton Reverbs, but reading around I'd read that putting a 12-inch speaker in place of the 10-inch speaker would give a better sound, so I decided that my kit would be made with a 12-inch speaker. The Princeton Reverb is a relatively small and simple amp, but the first thing we did when we unpacked our kits was actually check that all the parts we had matched the parts list. Having ensured that all the right parts were there, we then proceeded to assemble the valve sockets to the chassis, as you can see here. Here we've put the transformers in place. The chassis are now beginning to look like the real thing, with the faceplate on. And now it's got the knobs installed as well. Wow, it's starting to look really cool. We put the chassis to one side and we started to build the circuit board. Here you can see the components put in place on one side. And this is John checking that we've got all the right components in all the right places. And here's a board with all the components in place. Building the board is actually the most time consuming of all the steps. And here's Lindsay working on his board. Having put the components in place, you then have to put the flying leads in place. Here's the underside of the chassis again. The first bit of wiring in the chassis is actually the heater circuit, and here you can see it finished. It's the green wiring on the left. This is the rectifier board. The power transformer, rectifier board and heater circuit is now in place. Here is the chassis out of the original Princeton Reverb for comparison purposes. The main difference between the original Fender chassis and the Mojo chassis is that the Fender chassis uses pressed cheek pieces, as you can see here, whereas the Mojo is a completely folded chassis, but it's very strong and that won't make very much difference. The circuit board has just been installed in the chassis now. And here it is after all the leads have been soldered to the correct positions. Here's John checking that everything's in the right place before we apply any power. It's always a good idea to get somebody to run through the circuit just to check you've done all the right things and you put everything in the right place. This is the first moment of truth where the amp is actually powered up, and they all worked first time, which was very gratifying. Lead dress is absolutely crucial, and we discovered after we'd assembled the amps that we got some parasitic oscillation, which is manifested by motorboating, which is a sort of putting noise, We compared the chassis with the original chassis. It was obvious that there were one or two issues with the earthing, so we corrected them and managed to eradicate the oscillation. The second moment of truth is, will the chassis actually fit the cabinet? And here's John just installing the first chassis. All the chassis fitted perfectly the first time. It's all a matter of personal taste, of course, but I think the crocodile skin Tolex and the wheat grill finish on my Princeton Reverb looks absolutely fantastic. The fit and finish of the Mojo cabinet is superb, and I'm absolutely delighted. The last things to get made are actually the speaker cable and the reverb tank cables, and here they are. In the event, despite working till 10 o'clock on the Sunday evening, we were unable to finish our kits in a weekend, and we had to reconvene on a Saturday a couple of weeks later. But I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed the experience, and I'm absolutely delighted with my Princeton Reverb clone.